When you need to send the perfect rose bouquet, only one brand can say they've been the floral authority for 50 years. 1-800-Flowers. Why should you trust 1-800-Flowers? They hand-select every stem to ensure top quality. And with nationwide delivery, smiles and satisfaction are 100% guaranteed. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses, we'll double it at no extra cost. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name is Russ Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. How are you? Hope you're good. You join me as I preview our upcoming games against Uruguay and Japan. As I think I've said before, the wait between our November games and then the following year's games always seems to be a long drag, and this one seems no different. You may remember our last game was away to Albania. That was an enjoyable trip, that one. But it was the 16th of November last year, 2025. It will be 132 days between that game and the upcoming Uruguay game. Which I guess is why I've not released as many episodes as I usually would have during that period of time. And for that, I apologise. Although I will admit that at times I do come up against a wall with regards to ideas for content. In fact, once, let me let you into a secret. I had an idea for an episode. I started doing all the research for it as I normally would. I got stuck into it. And I thought to myself, I sort of already know a lot of this information that I'd found during the research. So I stopped. I looked back through the episodes I'd previously recorded and released, and lo and behold, already there was one on that subject. Look. And to be honest, I have had a few things going on recently that the pod has had to take a little bit of a backseat. And then you may be the same. You kind of look at the news and sometimes you think, is it worth it? Sometimes it's hard when you see the world's doing its best to implode and there's nothing you can do about it. And you think, do I really feel in the mood for doing this? But then you look the other way sometimes. You find some positives. You have a good interaction with someone or something and things feel okay. So listen, I hope you're doing good. I hope you're keeping well. This is the Uruguay and Japan preview episode. It's one I always enjoy doing, the previews, and one I know that always goes down well. Trust me, I look at the figures. And as I say, whilst there may not have been any recent releases, I have been putting some feelers out there for future episodes. It would be silly of me to say who or what, as if they don't come off, then I'm going to look pretty daft. But I'm confident. So watch this space. Anyway, coming up, a few things to chat about. Thomas Tuchel's latest squad for those friendlies. I will let you know what that is, and I'll be joined by two great guests to tell us about both Uruguay and Japan. So stay tuned for those. But first, I wanted to say a few things on a few events that have happened. Firstly, Kyle Walker. He recently announced his international retirement. This follows his 96 appearances for the England national side, which began when he made his debut at home to Spain in 2011. A 1-0 win thanks to a goal from Frank Lampard. Walker came on for the last 5 minutes as a sub for his Tottenham club mate, Scott Parker. That was under Fabio Capello. And from there, he played under Stuart Pearce, Roy Hodgson, Sam Allardyce, Gareth Southgate, and then 3 caps under Thomas Tuchel. He's represented England at 3 Euro tournaments. France in 2016, there was Euro 2020, and then with us in Germany 2024. And he was also a mainstay under Gareth Southgate in Russia 2018 and Qatar 2022. So much so that Gareth took to Instagram to say congratulations to him, and that apparently he'd twice talked Walker out of retirement. I think it's a safe call to say he will go down as one of our best right-backs or right-sided centre-backs in a three. Some may suggest Gary Neville, Jimmy Armfield, Phil Neal or George Cohen from the 66 side. And in those 96 caps, he scored just the one goal. Away to Ukraine in 2023. That was a game played in Wrocław in Poland. A game I was at. He scored the equaliser in a 1-1 draw.
Kane tried to pick out Walker. He succeeded. Kyle Walker! What a moment for him. His very first England goal at the 77th attempt. And England are level. Harry Kane turned provider, and for the first time Kyle Walker is the scorer.
I do wonder if he's had a chat with Thomas Tuchel, who may already have suggested some of his World Cup squad picks, and he now felt was the time to announce his step back. Who knows? But I just wanted to say cheers to Kyle. Great achievement. Thanks for your service. It's just a shame he couldn't make it to that magic 100 caps. But what a serviceman. And what a speed demon as well. Let's move to the World Cup. It's getting ever closer. But as I said, the world seems to be putting itself in a place where the World Cup is not at the front of everyone's consciousness. A few episodes back, I mentioned about nations who had previously withdrawn or boycotted the tournament over the years, and there have been a few, although none so much in recent times. But here we are, with a host nation, the United States, attacking Iran, who, incidentally, were the third nation to qualify for the World Cup back on the 25th of March last year. Some will say it's a little excursion. Some will call it a war. It's not something that's happened before like this, is it? It's unprecedented. And it's a situation where you'd think FIFA, might step in, mediate. But we all know that Gianni Infantino is so far in bed with Trump that, well, remember the Peace Prize? He's caught between a rock and a hard thing, or he hasn't got the balls to do anything. On the 12th of March, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, I quote, "The Iran national soccer team is welcome to the World Cup, but I really don't believe it is appropriate that they be there for their own life and safety." My word. Genuinely don't know what to say. I know what to think, but clearly it's too late in the day to change anything with regards to venue location. That's not going to happen. Seeing and hearing from Infantino might be a step in the right direction if he can take his head out of the sand. But for the Iranian team who have earned their place to be there, I feel for them. Can't imagine what they're feeling. Pretty conflicting thoughts, I'd imagine. And likewise, the women's team, who recently played in Australia. In fact, before Trump's posting, Iran's sports minister, Ahmad Donamali, apologies if I've pronounced that incorrectly. Anyway, he told state media that his country would not take part. Quote, "Under no circumstances do we have the appropriate conditions to participate in the World Cup." Now, if they do withdraw, I don't know what will happen. As I say, there's no precedent for it. But in my eyes, there's a couple of options. Group G, which is Iran's group, also features Belgium, Egypt and New Zealand. Could they just play the group without Iran? No, not likely to happen, is it? I don't envisage that happening. Each team needs to play 3 games in their group for the tournament to really work out. But, well, it is a possibility with third place possibly qualifying. But it would appear that there are clauses for qualified nations should they withdraw. Bizarrely, Iran could be fined, then incur further sanctions within FIFA further down the line. It's just beyond the pale. But if they do withdraw, who takes their place? Well, as I said, they qualified back in March of last year. They came through the Asian Confederation, whereby they joined in second round. They finished top of their group, Group E, with 4 wins and 2 draws. They moved then into the third qualifying round, where they topped their Group A table with 7 wins, 2 draws and 1 defeat. They finished 2 points ahead of second placed Uzbekistan, who have also qualified for the tournament. So it would be unfair to look further within that group. As also there were Groups B and C from the third qualifying round, from which South Korea, Jordan, Japan and Australia also qualified. The Asian Confederation provides the World Cup with 8 automatic spaces, plus a possible 9th via an intercontinental playoff. So further on from the third qualifying round, there was the 4th round, from which Qatar and Saudi Arabia qualified from. Then the final 5th round, which was a 2-legged playoff between the United Arab Emirates and Iraq, which Iraq were victorious. Now this is where that intercontinental playoff comes in, because Iraq now still need to play either Bolivia or Suriname in Monterrey in Mexico. Now if they win that, then they are through. So realistically, if you're going to take Iran's spot from the Asian Confederation, it'll either be the UAE or Iraq who take their place, should it come to it. But I do wonder if either the losers of Bolivia or Suriname, who play Iraq, they may say, hang on a minute, we could take Iran's place. I don't know. Although it does seem that there are initial talks about moving Iran's matches from the States south to Mexico. Now, how easy this would be at this late stage, I don't know. But at the moment, Iran are scheduled to play New Zealand and Belgium in LA, and then they go up to Seattle to face Egypt. Now, apparently there is a FIFA Congress in Vancouver on the 30th of April, where I guess if nothing is sorted by then, a decision will be made, will have to be made. My word, what an absolute mess. Anyway, back to England and the Uruguay and Japan games. This is the send-off series. Is it just me that finds that terminology, it just makes me want to vomit? This basically means this is the last chance for us to see the team on English soil before the World Cup. Although this isn't the first time, or indeed a new thing, although in recent years, 1990 to 2018, in each of those World Cup years, we had a home friendly game prior to the World Cup, just after the season had ended. It's a chance for those not going to the tournament to see the team off. Qatar, there were no warm-up games. But 1990, there was a pre-warm-up game at Wembley, then in Tunisia. 98, Wembley, then Morocco. 2022, there was World Cup a pre-World Cup game in Liverpool, then one in Korea and Japan. 2006, there was World Cup games in Manchester. 2010, we had pre-World Cup games in Wembley and Austria. 2014, many of you will remember that we had the 2 games in Florida, but shortly before that, we played Peru at Wembley. And then 2018, we had games at Wembley and at Leeds. But as I say, it's not a new thing that the national team have not had games at home prior to the World Cup. In 1950, we had games in Lisbon and Brussels. 54, Belgrade and Budapest. In 1970, there were games in Bogota and Quito. And then the last time was in 1986, where all our pre-World Cup games were held in the United States. It's just a bit of a frustrating thing, I think. It's a shame that there isn't the opportunity to have a game at home somewhere in the country before the team fly off. Okay, let's take a look at the squad Thomas Tuchel announced on Friday the 20th of March. Now, this must be one of the biggest England squads ever selected. 35 players. Tuchel's thinking behind this, as he said in his press conference, was we decided to divide it into basically 2 camps, almost. So we bring players in that we haven't seen, who haven't played so much, to open up the picture and the competition for plane tickets to the US. Then from Friday and Saturday, a group of players will come into camp, 10 or 11 players who have had a rest, so that they can then go with a new group and mix of players into the next match against Japan. So simply, we'll see 2 different starting 11s for both Uruguay and Japan. And he later confirmed that these 11 will miss Uruguay and they will participate against Japan. They are Henderson, Byrne, Gay, Konsa, O'Reilly, Anderson, Rice, Rodgers, Gordon, Kane and Saka. So there's a little bit of a mix of players that you would expect to see in a starting 11 come the first game at the World Cup, but then there's no Bellingham there's no Pickford. So yeah, he's mixing it up a little bit. I think if this does happen, how Tuchel has said it will, I think this, looking back, this may be the first time since October 2023 when we'll have fielded 2 different starting 11s in successive games. It appears we've done it against Australia and then Italy a few days later in October 2023. It also happened against Hungary and Andorra in 2021. The same thing, 2 different starting 11s in successive games. Shout out to Charlie over at the Gate 102 podcast, who indirectly steered me to looking into that stat. But yeah, let's take a proper look at that squad. 5 goalkeepers. I'll come to that in a minute. We've got Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, Aaron Ramsdale, Jason Steele and James Trafford. Defenders, Dan Byrne, Mark Gay, Lewis Hall, Esri Konsa, Tino Livramento, Harry Maguire, Nico O'Reilly, Jarrell Quansah, Jed Spence, John Stones and Fikayo Tomori. In midfield, Elliot Anderson, Jude Bellingham, James Garner, Jordan Henderson, Kobe Mainu, Declan Rice, Morgan Rogers and Adam Wharton. And then a plethora of forwards, Jared Bowen, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Eberichi Eze, Phil Foden, Anthony Gordon, Harry Kane, Noni Madueke, Cole Palmer, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka and Dominic Solanke. As I say, 35 players. It is a squad with 904 caps, 155 goals across it. and an average age of 26.4. Now, there are 5 players from Newcastle United and Manchester City, 4 from Arsenal, 2 from Crystal Palace, Everton, Aston Villa, Manchester United and Tottenham, and 1 each from Brighton, Bayer Leverkusen, AC Milan, Nottingham Forest, Real Madrid, Brentford, West Ham, Leeds United, Bayern Munich, Chelsea and Barcelona. Now we've got 3 uncapped players within the squad. Jason Steele, goalkeeper from Brighton and Hove Albion. James Trafford from Manchester City, of course, been in England squads before, but yet to make the pitch. And Everton's James Garner in midfield, yet to, well, has come into the squad new. Youngest player is Nico O'Reilly, aged just 20. The oldest is Jordan Henderson at 35. Incidentally, Jason Steele is 35. Most goals, most caps. I shouldn't need to tell you really, but I will. Harry Kane, 112 caps, 78 goals. So let's just take a look at this squad. And I started it, obviously, with the goalkeepers. 5 goalkeepers. I remember when Tuchel expanded and brought in 4 goalkeepers, which even I feel is too many. 5 is just bizarre, but he's going to have a look at them. Although it appears that Jason Steele of Brighton, the plan is to use him as a training keeper at the World Cup, which even that seems a little strange to me. You can take 4 goalkeepers, you take a goalkeeping coach, they can all train against each other. I don't really understand why you need 5. Of course, there are the regular faces there, as I've said, Jordan Pickford, Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, but there are also some returning faces. Harry Maguire hasn't played since Ireland away in September 2024. Kobe Mainu, also of Manchester United, who likewise his last cap was that same game, Ireland away. Fikayo Tomori returns for the first time since November 2023. That was Malta at home. And I mentioned Harry Maguire there. Well, he celebrated his call-up by being sent off against Brentford on the same evening. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he last played in the 4-0 win over Ukraine in 2021. That was the Euro quarter-finals. And Dominic Solanke hopes to earn his 4th cap, his last coming in 2024, which was Ireland at home, the 5-0 win. Now, there are injuries. Reece James is probably the major one. I think he's got a hamstring. That only happened recently. Trevor Chalobah, also of Chelsea. Of course, Jack Grealish is still out injured, but I think perhaps maybe under Thomas Tuchel his England days may be up. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that we can't sort of have Reece James in the squad. Seems a little while since he's been there. But who else misses out? Luke Shaw, which seems a strange one. He's been playing well for Manchester United. He's been playing regularly, so you'd think he might get a look in. Trent Alexander-Arnold, obviously at Real Madrid, getting games. And we know what Trent's capable of, but he hasn't been selected, which I find really strange. He's got so much to offer down the wing. Of course, we know maybe his defensive capabilities not as good as we'd perhaps like, but hey, more than capable of. Well, he's an England international. I don't know how many caps he's. Let's double check that. He's earned 34 England caps. He's capable of scoring. We know that. I just find it a strange one. Why he's omitted him. I don't know if that is the end for Trent under Tuchel. Alex Scott of Bournemouth. Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins hasn't been selected. Danny Welbeck, of course, previously won a cap and has been doing well for Brighton. In fact, he scored against Liverpool in the Premier League the following day for Brighton. Jared Branthwaite, Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes been looked over. Morgan Gibbs-White, Conor Gallagher, now of Tottenham. Ivan Toney, of course, previously capped. Miles Lewis-Skelly, perhaps hasn't been playing so much at Arsenal of late, but again, scored for England on his debut under Tuchel, but hasn't been selected. Perhaps our squad is so strong that we can leave those players out. And then, of course, he was asked about Max Dowman of Arsenal. I've said, I've got to be careful maybe how I phrase this as being an Arsenal supporter. I think it would be a mistake to bring Max Dowman in. I think you really do have to factor in his age. I don't even mean for these internationals. I mean even considering for the World Cup. I think at that age he needs to be nurtured, and I think being in an England environment, as good as it would be, I think he's just too young. Too many games, too soon. There is a danger of burning a young player out or putting so much pressure upon his shoulders. I'm happy for Max Dowman to wait and be part of the Euro 2028 squad going forward towards that. That's my opinion. You may not agree with that. And let's be honest, if he hadn't have scored that goal against Everton the other day, the noise wouldn't have been half as loud as it has been. Let's remember that goal was an open goal after Jordan Pickford had decided to come up for a corner in the last minute of the game. Don't get me wrong, it's great, fantastic that he got on the score sheet and becomes Arsenal's youngest ever Premier League goal scorer, whatever it was. But if Pickford had stayed put, the likelihood of Dowman scoring, well, it reduces somewhat, doesn't it? So that's the squad, of which the same day as that announcement, there was the official release of the new shirts, home and away for the World Cup. And those will no doubt take us to just before the start of those 2028 Euros. Of course, they are shirts that we've all seen before, the likes of footy headlines and the internet. It's kind of ruined the surprise these days. We've seen them all months before. Chinese online shops were already selling them for a fraction of their official retail price. And I have to say, the shirts, both of them, well, they're pretty underwhelming. Nike releasing them on the same day Adidas unveiled their away shirts. I have to say, Adidas have stamped all over Nike. If you're into your football shirt fashion, and I know there's very little originality in football shirt design these days, but Nike seem to have made a shirt that looks something like a shirt and shorts, a kit for schools, a value team wear. They both have odd looking collars, and they have these funny looking seams or stripes or beading over the shoulders that just stop and go nowhere. You could cut the sleeves up and it'd look like a vest. But we do have the return of a red away shirt. You may remember the last red away we had was barely worn at all. It was the throwback to the 1990 red shirt, which ironically was the one that Kyle Walker wore when he scored his only goal that I mentioned earlier. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the shirts, and I've managed to do it without even mentioning the prices. I'll leave you to find those out. Now, before we hear from our two guests, can I just return to the squad for a moment? Over the weekend, I'm sure you may have seen the EFL Cup final, or the Carabao Cup final, or if you're old enough, the Rumbelows Cup or the Coca-Cola Cup. Anyway, you would have seen that Eberici Eze wasn't selected. It was announced that he was injured. And the following day, Monday, Tuchel confirmed this by announcing his withdrawal and being replaced by Newcastle's Harvey Barnes. Now, it also saw the withdrawal of Jarell Quansah, and he has been replaced by Arsenal's Ben White. Now, immediately, this stirred emotions with fans, and to a certain extent, I get it. Once again, I'm going to try and look at this without my Arsenal hat on. Yes, back in 2022, he withdrew from the squad in Qatar for personal reasons. He then made himself unavailable whilst Gareth Southgate was in charge, to which Gareth said the door was always open to him. It appears, or word on the street, as they say, he seemed to have some sort of disagreement with Steve Holland, Southgate's main assistant. No one really knows for sure. And as I've said on previous episodes, he's not the first to decline an England call-up, and he won't be the last. There are only a select few that know the real reasons behind it all. And Ben White, just as anyone else does, has the right to do that, to decline a call-up. There's some that seem to think that there's this mantra that you don't turn your country down. It's not set in stone. That's not even an unwritten rule. It's not a rule. It's not even unwritten. Some have said that he doesn't have an interest in the game outside of it, which I find, to be honest, is that really an issue? Plenty of us are good at our jobs, but don't feel the need to take it home with us and think about it a bit more. Some will see him as some sort of person with, how do I put this, troublemaking issues. If that was the case, then I'm sure Arsenal would have found those out by now, as would Brighton. Brighton fans would have said something similar. I haven't seen anything. But if he does have any of those tendencies, then you'd expect Thomas Tuchel to see them firsthand in the time he has now with him. So Tuchel, he can make that decision, which at the end of the day is the only decision that really matters. I think let's start afresh, see where we go from here, but hopefully there's not too much of a negative reaction at Wembley against him. And whilst we're talking Carabao Cup, I have to acknowledge Nico O'Reilly, don't I? 2 goals to win it. Congratulations to him, especially the day after his 21st birthday. Amazing. Well done to him. So, England's first friendly is against Uruguay, Friday the 27th of March. Here are the facts. I know you like them. It'll be our 12th meeting. So far, we've won 3, we've drawn 3, and we've lost 5. England and Uruguay, we last met in the 2014 World Cup, Sao Paulo. Many of you will remember we lost that one 2-1. Many of you may have been there. But the last time we met in England was 2006 at Anfield, where we won 2-1. It was a game that I went to, that one, a long time ago, that. But I'm glad, though, to give us some more information on Uruguay. I'm glad to be joined by Alvaro from the YouTube and Twitter account Uruguay Football in English, and also the website uruguayfootballhistory.com. Alvaro, hello there.
Russell, thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Welcome along. Uruguay born and bred?
Yes, born, mostly bred, though, in Canada, actually. Right. So I have lived in Uruguay later on in my life, but I think I've mostly experienced Uruguayan football in a sense as a bit of an outsider and a bit of an insider as well. So a little bit of both worlds.
Yeah, gotcha. So what's the feeling initially about this game? Because it's been so long since the two teams have met.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's interesting when you just mentioned '06. I had completely forgotten about that friendly. And I remember where I was. I watched it in my parents' house. I was in university at the time. And if I remember correctly, I think Joe Colt won it, right? Near injury time at the end.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're quite right. Yeah, pretty sure.
It was Joe Colt. I remember Uruguay scoring like this one player, Omar Boso. Like I have not thought of this goal for 20 years, but he scored an incredible volley. And this man, I mean, I believe he had never scored an international goal, and he rarely scored in his career. So that volley came out, I mean, absolutely out of nowhere. And just fascinating when you just mentioned that, all these memories kind of just flooded back by that Anfield match.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just maybe I say a little bit more recent. As I say, 2014, the World Cup in Brazil. This was the Uruguay team of, well, the likes of Suarez, Forlan, was it, is it not Cannavaro? No, he was the Italian. Who am I thinking of?
Cavani. Probably.
Cavani, yeah, with the hair, of course.
Of course.
Those days, they were gone of those players, haven't they?
God, yeah. Well, a lot of characters on that team as well. That team was sort of the aging version of the 2010 team, essentially. They had struggled to make the World Cup, actually. I'm not sure if you remember this, but Uruguay actually qualified via a playoff. They had to beat Jordan in 2014 or in 2013, actually. So that team was considered, I don't know, just, not at its peak or at its prime. But it was heavily dependent on Luis Suarez. And that was Luis Suarez at his sort of Anfield, like carrying entire teams on his shoulder prime, that, even though, sometimes he did that later for Barcelona, but at the time it was, I've rarely seen a team have such dependence on one player. And, obviously, we saw that reflected in the match, obviously, what Suarez did and injured as well. But it really, really did show that, that team, was, it was a decent, but heavily dependent on certain stars.
Yeah. I was looking the other day in just my research that obviously he's still playing for Inter Miami. And I thought, well, actually, he's not selected in the squad. But then I found out he retired. Was it late last year from the international scene?
Yes, it was right after the Copa America, I believe. At the end of 2024, he had a sort of a public, goodbye, farewell match. It actually was a qualifier. So he got to play, I think, the last 25 minutes. I forgot. It could have been against Peru or Bolivia. I'm not exactly sure who they played, but that match was supposed to be his sort of going away match. And at the end, there was a little ceremony at the end. Notably, though, Marcelo Bielsa was not present for the after-match ceremony. And then, it was sort of revealed, or Suarez, about a week later, came out with a bit of an inflammatory interview where he kind of laid everything bare and everything kind of exploded into this sort of internal, I don't know, calamity. I'm not even trying to politically say this, between Bielsa and the players. So everything sort of kind of happened after Luis Suarez left the national team, like immediately after, interestingly.
Oh, I see. Well, you mentioned Bielsa. Let's bring it up to date. I mean, Bielsa is a manager that Leeds fans will be fully aware of. He's a manager that's had, more clubs than Tiger Woods, as we say. I was looking for the list. There's loads. But as I was looking at it, and I was like, actually, he's an Argentine. He's Argentinian, and he's in charge of the Uruguayan national squad. What's the feeling to Bielsa?
Interesting you say that, actually. The last Argentinian manager that managed Uruguay was in the early 2000s, and that was Daniel Passarella. If you remember, I believe he captained Argentina in the 1978 World Cup. So that was, I don't know, there's never, I don't know what you can compare this to. I don't believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if there's ever been an English manager that managed Scotland. I'm not sure if that's ever happened. I highly would doubt that.
No.
I don't know, maybe. I don't know, because that seems like they would be historic, right? I don't know. Yeah. But in this sense, I mean, there's not a relationship between Argentina and Uruguay has always been very interesting. There's sort of this camaraderie, as if historically both football cultures have always been sort of tied together, especially from its inception. Even now, there's a lot of, let's just say, national bonds that start from childhood. So it's really expected that Argentinian kids come to Uruguay and vice versa. They stay in each other's families' houses. There's international tournaments at several ages. So, there's not Uruguayan fans that grow up with Argentinian football and television, etc. So there is a rivalry, but there's not this disdain that some people who have asked me, oh wow, there's an Argentinian manager. How's that, reflected in Uruguay? Ironically, I thought at the beginning, the press or the journalists were actually quite intensely critical of Bielsa. And interestingly, a lot of former players and managers would come out in the press and say things like, "Oh, there are wonderful Uruguayan managers here. Why are we not just hiring a Uruguayan international or just a Uruguayan to manage a national team?" After a little while, that's sort of silenced, and I'm not sure exactly why, but I think people started to really respect Bielsa in more than just the way he managed a team. I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of videos came out on Twitter and social media, and they would show Bielsa like attending domestic league matches with like 300 people, like near empty stadiums. And he's there just drinking mate, humbly interacting with the fans. And a lot of people really responded to that positively. And it looked like, I don't know, for whatever reason, the press started to respond in turn as well. So, I mean, there's a really, really positive feeling towards Bielsa that we've seen him interact with a lot of people in public. To kids, he's visiting schools on a regular basis. I don't know. In general, there is a positive view of Bielsa. And I think, I don't know, he's a very endearing character, I think. Everything that happened at Leeds was heavily publicized in South America, especially in Argentina. Yeah. And if anything's publicized in Argentina, it reaches Uruguay. And I think everything that happened between him and Leeds United, I don't know, it was just, there's something about it. I mean, Leeds, I think, carries a historic weight. Anyone who knows football history, particularly in England, they know what Leeds means. And to have someone so, I don't know, he's so eccentric, just sort of arrive, plop himself there. The season he had afterwards in the Premier League. And I think the way he was let go did sort of bother a few people. So I don't know. I think Bielsa arrived with quite a bit of social credit. People just are endeared to his sort of very passionate and real way of feeling football. And I don't know, in terms of results, there's been criticism here and there, but I don't know. Everything kind of seems to hinge now on how the World Cup will go, just to see how his legacy will turn out. But in general, when you talk to the fans, just to kind of highlight this, it seems to be a very positive relationship between the fans and Bielsa, especially over the last 3 years, I would say.
Yeah. Well, you'd be hard pushed to find a Leeds fan who's got a bad word to say about him. The effect he had on Leeds, obviously, and on the Premier League was great. Yeah. Can we expect to see him sitting on a bucket at Wembley?
Oh, always. That immediately became a thing as soon as he started managing in Uruguay. Even actually, interestingly, I think there was a match, one of the early matches where he didn't get a bucket or he didn't get something where he usually sat at. And a ton of Leeds fans started messaging the official Uruguay Twitter account saying, please get this man his cooler or whatever he needs. Lo and behold, the next match he has his cooler. I think it was a second World Cup qualifier. So I thought that was fascinating. Yeah. One of the things, by the way, is the second Uruguay hired Bielsa, I think my Twitter account got like 2,000 new subscribers. Yeah, immediately. And the Leeds fans, I mean, the things they were saying, not just public stories, like actual private accounts. And I remember making sure that I was actually retweeting all of these because it was just wonderful to hear. You would have a lot of stories of people saying they would walk by his house and Bielsa's just there gardening. And you would think, oh, I'm afraid. Should I even ask him for a photo? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Come on in, selfie with him. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It seems like, okay, he's just being a regular human being. But to people, especially people in football, that means a lot, actually, when we see a manager just take his time to interact with fans like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I was looking through the squad that he's picked. It's a rather large squad. I don't know if it's a preliminary squad. Obviously, there's a lot of players who play in South America, but so I'm going down there, I'm going, oh, yeah, I recognise him. There's a few that British fans, English fans will recognise. There's Bueno at Wolves. We've got is it Sariachi up at Celtic, Ugarte at Manchester United. Manchester City fans will be aware of Valverde after he scored a hat-trick against them in the Champions League. So there's quality throughout. Darwin Núñez, Liverpool fans will be aware of, although obviously not playing at Liverpool anymore. But is there players there that you think, who aren't we likely to recognise that could make an impact on the game or be a future star?
I don't know about a future star, but there's definitely two standout call-ups. One of them is Fernando Muslera, who, if you remember, was Uruguay's goalkeeper at the 2010 World Cup, up to 2018, actually. He was called back recently, and he's 39 years old, and he had, I'm pretty sure, officially retired from the national team, maybe over 4 or 5 years ago. So this is kind of shocking, and something a lot of people did not expect. And the idea is that he actually may start for Uruguay at the upcoming World Cup, which is, again, a big surprise, especially taking him to Wembley as well. Oh, another thing you should know about, actually, that this has been mostly publicized in Uruguay, but they're taking this match extremely seriously. Like Bielsa and his personal assistants who have come out of the press have said that literally the places of several players will be on the line in this match against England. So they're taking this very, very well. I even believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're actually inaugurating the jersey for the World Cup at Wembley as well. So they are obviously treating this very seriously. So they're trying to put out the best team possible. The other player that is a standout is Agustin Canovio. He plays for Fluminense in Brazil. Now, the reason this is a big deal is because he had a public split with Bielsa after the Copa America. So he was actually publicly critical of Bielsa, and Bielsa essentially erased him from the national team for roughly about 2 years or a year and a half. And suddenly he's been on form, fine, in Brazil. But him bringing him back is kind of a big deal, especially after a lot of publicized internal issues have happened between Bielsa and the players. So this is kind of a statement moment for Bielsa to call up this player. I believe he's expected to start for Uruguay, even though he's not playing in Europe. So this is definitely a player that a lot of people, at least in Uruguay right now, are at least noticing as a big deal in terms of this recent call up. Now, in terms of younger players, I don't know, a lot of the ones that have been doing really well in Europe, they have not been called up. Bielsa is, I'll give you an example. There's a player, Martin Satriano. He scored on Real Madrid about 2 weeks ago. He's in red hot form for Getafe in Spain. Everyone thought, wow, okay, obviously he might deserve a chance. Bielsa did not call him up. Bielsa, I don't know if he had the same, let's just say, routine or the way he did things at Leeds United, but he seems to be very, very set on the players that he's at least trained with or that he's called up initially. He doesn't seem to be one to experiment with like a little time before big matches. I'm not sure if he was like that. If he ever made any surprise, additions to the squad. I know club football is obviously very different from international football, but with Bielsa, the idea seems to be internally that he's very, very stuck on the players he has. So you were mentioning Darwin Núñez, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but he's not been getting much playtime at Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. Have you guys, I don't know, has that been reported much in England?
Not that I'm aware. I haven't seen it, though.
He went there essentially to get playing time before the World Cup, but ironically, and this is incredible, the team or the club, they split the team into two and they put him on the team that's only playing the Asian Champions League. So he's expected to get at most like 4 or 5 competitive matches until the World Cup now. And this was not expected. He's actually publicly stated this. He's like, I did not think I was barely going to play.
Right.
So he's being called up because, he's physically fit. He's not injured, and he has experience with the national team, but he's barely been playing. So quite a few of Uruguay's players, you mentioned Manuel Ugarte. I'm pretty sure you are aware that Ugarte has not been playing much at Manchester United.
That's right.
Yeah, he's mostly a substitute. I think when I tune in, I'm lucky to see him play 8 minutes a game. Honestly. Yeah. So then therefore again, some people are saying that this is going to affect his starting place on the national team, so you might not expect him to start. Key player who's not playing, he's still injured, Rodrigo Bentancur from
Spurs.
Tottenham Hotspur. That's another. He's massive for Uruguay. Like he is actually a key player, as big as Valverde, I would say, in the midfield. So missing him is a bit of a big deal. But I don't know what to expect. Okay, what to expect. Are you aware that Uruguay recently lost 5-1 to the United States?
I did see that, yes.
Yes. That was, I mean, talk about a meltdown. Yeah, everything in Uruguayan football essentially had a huge meltdown at that point. So the idea is that Uruguay showing up to this game with that chip on their shoulders, that they were just beaten 5-1. So I don't know, just a few things to take into account. If you see Uruguay like start this game like it's a competitive match, a lot of it has to do with the current narrative, including obviously the 5-1 recently, and the fact that, yeah, this is being treated as a absolutely competitive match that will actually set the stage for the actual World Cup team.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm quite happy that England are facing a team of Uruguay's stature, because under Thomas Tuchel, we haven't really had a major top class team to play against. Obviously, our qualifying games have been against, it's going to throw me off my trail of thought now, but who was there? Andorra, and I can't think who played now, but they haven't been as competitive as I'd like them to have been. So I like the idea that Uruguay are going to come out all guns blazing and give us a game to show us what we're capable of as a team. But looking towards the World Cup, just briefly, you're in a group with Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia and Spain. It's got to be a group that you're qualifying from, surely, isn't it?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. No, honestly, I mean, it's okay. Saudi Arabia was actually Uruguay's maybe most difficult opponent at the 2018 World Cup, where Uruguay technically, I mean, this is kind of hilarious. I mean, a lot of Uruguay's, the narrative of that tournament is that Uruguay came in fifth, but rarely do you see anyone mention fifth place. But officially, because of the sort of the final ranking and how you did in the group stage, it added up to Uruguay came in fifth. So they treated that World Cup like a huge success. Right. But ironically, yeah, a lot of the players actually say that said that Saudi Arabia was the most difficult opponent. Funny enough, even though they played France and Portugal in the knockout stage. So I don't know. You never know. I mean, I don't know. The thing about Uruguay is there's a very interesting, I wish I could actually share this. There's a commercial from I think it was the 2014 World Cup. And it was very funny because it showed sort of this dichotomy between pride and humility. And it was just a bunch of fans sort of in this, I don't know, there's a stand and a guy sitting there and he's sort of talking about Uruguay's past, like football glories and history, whatever. And everyone's getting really, really, really pumped. And all of a sudden he goes, and every time he says, but, everyone kind of goes like, calm down. And he starts going, oh, we are a nation of 3 million. The rest of the world just towers over us financially, blah, blah, blah. And then he'll go off again, talking about history and everyone gets excited again. And then he'll say, and he'll mention another reason why Uruguay really can never be seen as a consistent dominant force. And Uruguayans, this is something important to know. They've really internalized that no matter who they play, it's usually like uphill. Like they teach the kids to start with that mentality. Why is that? There's a lot of reasons. If you're surrounded by Argentina and Brazil constantly, I think I've heard this is very similar to the way the Scots react to the English media being sort of prominent in Scotland. Well, the same thing happens with Argentinians. You see two extremely, let's just say high self-esteem football cultures that usually their narrative is we're going to run over everyone. And I think Uruguayans sort of distance themselves because of that, exposure, I suppose. So in general, anytime you tell Uruguayan, oh, you guys should dominate this, something's just snaps like, no, we're not Argentina or Brazil. We struggle. Most of the titles Uruguay has won have been like extremely dominant tournaments. Defensive performances, right? Where Uruguay would survive miraculously and suddenly, a new Copa America. Whoa. So Uruguay knows that they don't win usually by dominating or feeling that they're just going to walk in and just run over this group stage. Not at all. In fact, it's the opposite. They try to show as much respect as possible because, everyone's playing for national pride here. And in fact, actually, ironically, this is fascinating. Oscar Tabarez, before the Saudi Arabia game in the dressing room, famously told the players, this match will be more difficult than any Champions League game because he said of the pride that the Saudis are coming in with. And by the way, didn't Saudi Arabia beat Argentina in 2022?
They did, yes.
Right? I'm just saying. So I don't know. I'm just saying, respect where it's due. That's usually the Uruguayan way.
Fair enough. Well, you mentioned Uruguayan history there. I'll come to that in a moment, but in the brief time that we've got left. Just educate us a little bit on Uruguayan football, because I had a quick sort of brainstorm. I was like, I can only think of two Uruguayan teams, national sort of domestic teams. Is it Penarol and Nacional? They're the only two I know. Who are the champions? What's the league?
Well, the current champions are Nacional. They won the league last year. They beat Peñarol, and they beat them in it was a heavily publicized match because usually since 1930, the final of the league has been played at the Estadio Centenario, which is sort of the Wembley of Uruguay. It's the national team stadium where the first World Cup was hosted.
That's right, yeah.
And for the first time in over 100 years, the final was hosted in a home and away between Nacional and Peñarol, and they both have relatively new stadiums. So it was kind of a big deal because of the fact that Nacional ended up beating Peñarol in extra time very dramatically, and it was their 50th league championship as well. We're getting somewhere similar to the Scottish teams, I think Celtic and Rangers in terms of the numbers, right, of league titles. So the current champion is Nacional, and right now the Uruguayan league just started. We're probably in the sixth match of the season, and I mean it's progressing. The Copa Libertadores is starting, so it's sort of a different schedule, I think, altogether from Europe. Everything kind of starts after January here, or at least in South America. One of the things that I find interesting about Uruguay is that they have this interesting split league system that is designed to give the small clubs a chance to win the league. And I find that's like unheard of, particularly growing up in North America, where everything's very, capitalistic, economic, whatever. But for example, what happens in Uruguay is this: there's two mini tournaments, like half season tournaments, and the two champions from that tournament face off in the final. Now, what this does is it gives teams the chance to win these sort of short tournaments, and they usually end up like ending right on the wire. And what happens is it gives clubs that have less than, like, we're talking 5% or 1% of the finances of Nacional and Peñarol. Now, personally, me, I've actually always been a follower of Scottish football, particularly this season with Hearts.
Yeah.
This is known, but Hearts are doing really well in Scotland. And I was thinking in my head, like, wow, it's so difficult for Hearts to maintain this all year. Had this been done in the Uruguayan fashion, Hearts would have already been booked a place in the final. You know what I mean? And the odds are, you can, you have more of a chance, obviously, of winning a title if that occurs. But the fascinating thing is that, it makes it more accessible for smaller clubs to gain entry into international tournaments. Right. And I don't know, I've always been appreciative of that because, they could have easily allowed a full season tournament guaranteeing the top two richest clubs always get, the chance, at these international competitions. So I don't know. I think it's a very cool thing that they do in Uruguay. They purposely do it that way. It is a tiny country. You mentioned, two clubs. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, out of the 3.5 million people, maybe 3.2 million follow Peñarol. It's really, it's enormous. It's like 90%, 93%. Yeah, it's huge. There are other clubs that have their fan bases, of course, but generally, Nacional and Peñarol, they have a big weight. They've their victories internationally have been sort of embraced in general as a sort of big Uruguayan football achievement. So everyone, even if you're a fan of the smaller teams, they usually are very emotional and tied to those two clubs. So I don't know. There's a lot to it. A lot of history that breeds more fans, obviously. But generally, Uruguay is a very small nation, and usually the market allows for two big clubs to be the ones that are formed consistently, at least. I would say, yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't know, some random facts that I actually found about Uruguay and England. I don't know if you'd be interested in hearing them.
Go on.
Some things that I think there's something I saw this reported about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think this was ever reported in England, but in 1964, England actually played Uruguay for the first time at Wembley. And this was a friendly, and actually, ironically, Alberto Spencer, I'm not sure if you know him. He's Ecuadorian, greatest Ecuadorian footballer of all time. He played for Uruguay in that match and scored Uruguay's first ever goal at Wembley, incredibly. Okay. So it's sort of been 50 years, quite several decades ago. And ironically, here's an interesting thing. Uruguay ended up sending like a C team to Wembley, and I'm not sure if this was supposed to be hidden, but the article I read implied that Uruguay was supposed to send their full team, but they didn't. And they were terrified that they were going to get destroyed at Wembley. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they only lost 2-1 was like a huge relief. So what happened was Nacional were playing the Copa Libertadores and they couldn't send any of their players. Peñarol, I believe, were in North America they used to do tours just for financial reasons. So literally Uruguay sent a team of all the small clubs only. And it was sort of, oh my God, like a last second team. And I don't think anyone in England ever even knew about this. This was never reported, but the idea during the match was like just sweating, like, oh my God, I hope like this is not at all the team that was supposed to be sent to, a historic institution like Wembley. This is like for any football team, going to Wembley is always a big deal, right? And we know what England represents in football. So this was almost kind of ironic. And the ending was sort of relief for Uruguay. Won. And yeah, if you actually see the media and the press, it was like, oh my God, we survived. Like we got away with it. It was legit, technically a successful, let's just say run, or match in England, let's just say. So I always thought that was very interesting, or just a funny little anecdote that I don't know if it was ever known in England circles.
Well, it's not something I was aware of. It's something I'll look into. Every day's a school day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Listen, before we say goodbye, just tell us a little bit about the website, about the Twitter account, where we can find you, where we can follow you.
Yeah, well, so I made a sort of a virtual football museum on Uruguay's football history. So it's just the history of the national team, just photos and occasional videos. And that can be found at uruguayfootballhistory.com. And yeah, my Twitter account is mostly just focused on just spreading Uruguay's history, Uruguay's football culture. And that is Uruguay Football English at Twitter. And on YouTube, there is a channel as well. And the video is called What It Means to Play for Uruguay. I made about a 3-minute video, just sort of explaining the specific intricacies of Uruguay's football culture that I think are not as widely known, at least not outside the Spanish speaking world. So yeah, I'm just honestly just an independent account. We're just hoping to interact with fans, English speaking fans especially, worldwide, and yeah, just interacting and enjoying the game.
Lovely. Alvaro, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciated. Enjoy the game.
Oh, likewise. My pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. Thanks to Alvaro there. Now, following that match against Uruguay, Thomas Tuchel will turn his attention to Japan, a nation we've played, only 3 times previously. We played them in the Umbro Cup, 1995. We played them at Wembley, winning 2-1 there. 2004, there was the FA Summer Tournament, which was held at the City of Manchester Stadium, now known as the Etihad. We drew 1-1 then. And now this is a game you may not be aware of. 2010, pre-World Cup friendly in Austria. Now, the 2 teams met. England won 2-1, but England didn't score a goal that day. England won courtesy of 2 Japanese own goals. There you go. Right, so we spoke to Alvaro in Canada. We are crossing the continent now. We're crossing the globe. We are going now to Japan, where I'm delighted to be joined by Adam Blosco over there. Adam, hello there.
Hello there. Hi. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Yes, I'm very good today. We have had a very sunny day in Yamagata Prefecture. I think it's due to get warmer now, which is really good.
Lovely. Now, this is going to, as the conversation will go on, people will think to themselves, hang on a minute, he's got a Scottish accent there, or there's a hint of Scotland, but you're not Scottish, you're actually Polish, but you're now living in Japan. You've got quite a history, haven't you? How did you find yourself in Japan looking at following Japanese football?
Yeah, that's so I was born in Poland, but I grew up in Scotland. I lived there for 20 years. So 4 months ago, I moved to Yamagata Prefecture all the way from Berwick-upon-Tweed, which is in between Newcastle and Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So, yes, I found myself here after choosing to pursue a career in teaching English after graduating from the Edinburgh Napier University with a journalism degree.
And now you're using that journalism degree to look at the J League, is that right?
Yes, so I have recently been on a hiatus, but I have been writing about the J League. I have my own website and have been looking into some of the talents within the J League, as well as making contacts, not only abroad, but also some people through the J League.
So has this been a dream of yours to sort of seek out the J League, or has it just all come together at the right time?
Not at all, actually. It was very spontaneous. After my first J League game, I think it was 2 years ago, between Kawasaki Frontale and FC Tokyo, which ended in a 4-0 win for Kawasaki. I was greeted by some very passionate fans who helped me to my seat, and I spent the whole game with them. So ever since, I've been invested.
Superb. So, well, we'll touch on the website soon and a bit more about the J League, because it's a league that perhaps we don't know so much about. But let's just touch on the international side first. Of course, England will be playing Japan in this second friendly. This is after Japan play Scotland, which I don't know if you'll have a split opinions on that game. Tell us what's the feeling about these upcoming games for Japan? Do they see England as a tough opponent?
So the doubleheader in the United Kingdom for Japan is going to be serving as a high intensity sort of fixture roundup for Hajime Moriyasu's men, who are looking to test themselves ahead of the 2026 World Cup in the USA. So there has been actually a few names included in these squads to sort of introduce them to the intensity of international football, such as Kento Shogai, who has got his first international call-up, as well as Kodai Sano and Ryosuke Sato, who will both be getting more experience with the senior men's team.
The squad that I've seen, I've been down through it. I've looked at some of the players. A lot of players play in and around sort of Germany, the Netherlands, but there are players that do play in England and in Britain as well, that English fans will be familiar with. There's Kamada at Crystal Palace, Maeda at Celtic, Tanaka at Leeds, and of course Brighton fans will be more than aware of Mitoma. Are they the players to look out for, or are there any other players that you think, no, we should be concentrating more on them?
There are certainly names to look out for. However, Kaoru Mitoma will be playing a slightly different role in the national team, much more versatile for Hajime Moriyasu than he would be at Brighton under Hurzeler, I think, in the 3-4-3 formation that he favours. But right. There are a few other names that you should be looking out for, especially the returning man, Takehiro Tomiyasu, who is no longer at Arsenal, but at Ajax. So he is just back from injury. So I think those two games will be perfect to test his fitness levels ahead of the World Cup in what I think is an injury crisis for Japan at centre-back.
He was well looked after at Arsenal. Arsenal fans were very fond of him.
Yes, we were very fond of him. I myself am an Arsenal fan, and I do kind of miss him. So, very good question. We do have our centre-backs and right-backs and left-backs that are really good right now, obviously, but Takehiro was like a character we all kind of respected. So he was like that player you just couldn't hate, but he had such, his luck with injuries is just horrible.
Yeah, there's a couple of other. I mean, speaking of injuries, there are a couple of other players who I'm aware of have played for Japan in the past, but I don't know if they're suffering from injuries. Previously at Liverpool, was it Minamino? He's now at Monaco. Is he injured? And likewise, Endo at Liverpool. I think isn't he the Japanese captain, but he's injured as well.
Yes, so Takumi Minamino is actually currently out with an ACL injury, which will rule him out of the World Cup, unfortunately.
Oh, dear.
As for Endo, I believe he has also got an ankle injury, which he sustained in February against Sunderland. And Arne Slot was quoted that he will be sidelined for a long, long time, unfortunately.
So is this injury crisis, is it concerning for the Japanese people?
Yes, it has been. So I have been speaking to some of my friends around here, and they are concerned, but it has given sort of a leeway for some J-League talents to be stepping up. Like I said, Ryonosuke Sato will obviously have more experience with the national side now that he is being called up in the midst of an injury crisis. I believe he will be a replacement for Minamino, who provided that much needed energy, and I believe Sato can most likely do that as well.
Okay.
Ayase Ueda of Feyenoord, he has been very clinical in recent years, although he has been, like up and down dips, but then resurfacing back in form. However, he is becoming kind of a household name in Japan in terms of football. He's quite a good striker, I think. So, as well as, of course, Sato, who I've named a bunch of times. He is a 19-year-old. He's blooming. He's transitioning from right back to left mid, right mid, and sometimes even cam, and he's just an absolute monster.
I looked at the Japanese manager, the head coach. Is it Moriyasu? I have to excuse some of my pronunciation.
No, Hajime Moriyasu is perfect, yeah.
He's been in charge since 2018. Mm-hmm. He's obviously doing all right. Obviously, we look back at the last World Cup in Qatar, got some great results, beating Germany and Spain. Is he a manager that the Japanese people are content with, are happy with, can think they can take this team forward?
Yes, I personally haven't heard many complaints against Moriyasu. There has been questions, but I think that comes with every single manager there is, especially of a national team. It is a hard position to maintain, and I believe Hajime Moriyasu will be a man to trust for the coming years for the Japanese people.
So, looking ahead to the World Cup, Japan are in Group F. You face the Netherlands and Tunisia. Then you've got one of these pathway winners from UEFA, Pathway B. So you'll face one of either Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, or Albania. The Japanese, looking back on previous World Cups, Japan always seem to do quite well. This seems like another opportunity to get through the group stage.
Yeah, I truly agree that I think they will either be the table toppers in that group, or they will at least come second to the Netherlands. But I think these two will be the favourites to win the group. Hopefully not if Poland get through, if you know what I mean.
Of course, yeah. Being Polish, yeah, you really will have some split.
I will have to hide.
Yeah. Are there many Polish people over in Japan?
I have met two this coming year.
Well, you can have a little Polish World Cup party with all three of you.
I've only kept in touch with one of them, unfortunately.
Fair enough. We started the conversation. We were talking about the J League. To me, the J League I remember when Gary Lineker went over to Japan. Where he played for, was it Nagoya?
Nagoya Grampus.
Yeah, Grampus 8, I think they were called there. I don't know if they're still called that.
They are called Nagoya Grampus now. Ironically, that is where I will be moving.
Okay. And it's also where Arsenal picked up Arsene Wenger.
Yes, I believe so.
They're really the only Japanese team that I'm aware of. Obviously, many cities in Japan will have football teams that represent those cities. But tell us a little bit about the J League for the uneducated. What have you learned?
Okay, so number one thing is speaking to some of the top journalists, within the J League. I have explained a few words, and I have been quoted. I can quote somebody that told me not to ever bet on the J League. Actually,
okay.
So there's always been like a mix of teams going up and down. So currently we have FC Tokyo in resurgence after a very, very disappointing season last season, which again features Ryonosuke Sato, who is being called up right now for Japan.
Yeah.
We are currently in the special league, 100 Vision Year League, a J League, which serves as sort of like an advancement or like a filler between January and the summer, actually.
Right. Is that out of season or is it the main season?
Usually the main season would run on and end in December and start again in February. However, this time they are using this league to fill in the gap, to reschedule the actual J1 league to start in the summer to match the European calendar.
Okay. I think that's what they're trying to do with a lot of leagues, aren't they? To try and pair them all up so they're all fairly similar. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it is. It actually comes from the influence of European football, because more and more Japanese players are going to Europe, and I believe more Japanese fans are into the European game rather than the American side of things. So I think it's going against what would be the typical Americanization of sport in Japan.
Okay. And what is the sort of the fan culture in Japan? I remember going to Japan for the 2002 World Cup, and it was, I think the J League was maybe in its infancy then to a certain extent, but the fans were very much on board, made a lot of noise, very colourful. Is it still like that?
Yes, so I have attended 2 J League games,
Right?
which is probably not much for someone who writes about it, but both times I've been impressed by the quality of the atmosphere. The fans respect each other most of all, which is like a very big opposite to what we have in England, obviously. At one point, I think it was a few years back, 2-3 years back, when I was at my first game, there was fans boarding the same train with no fights whatsoever. Same way
Great.
on the way to the game, on the way back, no scraps, nothing.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, of course, that's why I agree.
Yeah. So who are the current J League champions?
So it's Kashima Antlers.
That's a team that I do. Now you say it, as a team that I have heard of. And you write about the J League. Go on, tell us where we can find and read a little bit more about that.
Obviously, on my own website, I do write out quite a bit, but it is on a hiatus. I do look to restart it again. You could find an awful lot on Twitter, on X, sorry. A lot of people will be writing about it. Most notably people like Ryo Nakagawa, as well as Dan Orlowitz, and there's a few more writers that I could probably mention that have impressed me, and I think they're really good. jfootballjournals.net, which is the domain I purchased to write about the J League, which I will be looking to restart once again, so I would appreciate if you could check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. jleaguejournals.net. Obviously, once the season gets going, you'll be looking at getting more writing on that.
Yes, I will be looking to catch up on the current 100-year league, as well as capturing some of the fan culture, some words from other analysts. I mainly like to focus on sort of small things and bringing them up to light rather than, writing too much of the obvious. Sometimes I do like a recap, but I would prefer, sort of like, how do you call it? Seeding saplings. They'll grow into something bigger in the future.
Yes, yeah, so. Gotcha. Well, at this moment in time, it's in the UK. It's 10 to 8 in the morning. It's what, 10 to 5 in Japan at the moment, I believe.
Yes, it's almost 5 p.m.
5 p.m. So obviously the game will kick off. I think maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock on the Tuesday, which will obviously going to be very early morning in Japan, isn't it?
Yes, I believe it's at 2 in the morning.
So there's going to be a lot of people bleary-eyed going to work the next day, then, I imagine. But I guess if Japanese people are used to watching European football, it's not much of a hardship.
Yes, there are some some people do stay up for the game in the morning, but I did ask some of my friends, and they're like, no.
Friendly doesn't mean that much to them. Is that right?
I do have some friends that are like religious football fans. Some of the people that go to futsal absolutely love it. Like, it's like a second lifestyle for them. They're always there. They've got their own shirts, and they're sometimes, some of them have limited English, so they would just communicate with me saying player names, team names, like you would.
Yeah, universal language of football.
Of course.
Yeah. So, just looking ahead to the game, can you see Japan getting a result with this squad that they've got, or will England be too powerful for Japan?
I'll be honest. I think there will be some moments where Japan will look bright, but I don't think they have enough in the locker to get over England at the moment, especially with the likes of Jude Bellingham playing. I'm not sure if is he in the squad right now?
He is in the squad, but Thomas Tuchel has had this idea of almost playing two different teams against Uruguay and a different team against Japan, and he's almost said the 11 that will play against Japan, and Bellingham isn't within that, so it appears that he may play against Uruguay.
I see. So I believe maybe there could be like a good game to be seen between Japan and England in that matter. Then,
yeah. Well, we can look forward to it. It's going to be a good game. Mm-hmm. Japan beat Brazil last year, didn't they?
Oh yes, they did.
That must have gone down well.
Yeah, it was huge. It's just also a bit tense because Japan does have a Brazilian population within it, especially in like Nagoya and further down south.
Adam, yeah, just once again, jleaguejournals.net is your website.
So thank you for the shout out. I really, really appreciate it, and I also appreciate you giving me my first podcast appearance.
You've been grand. You've been great. Thank you very much for your time.
Obviously, I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, great stuff. Well, who knows? Let's stay in touch, and if the two teams are to meet again, then yeah, maybe we can speak again.
Yeah, 100%. Please give me a shout and let me know how you get on.
Absolutely. Adam, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
My many thanks go to Adam there. You can follow him on Twitter at Adam Blosco17. Let me spell that for you. ADAM BLOSZKO and then 1717. His website is jleaguejournals.net. I wish him all the very best with that. Go check it out. Likewise, Alvaro for his insight into Uruguay and his website, UruguayFootballHistory.com. These episodes would not be the same without the input from the guests that give up a little bit of their time to come on the show, so it's always appreciated. Thank you very much. Now, usually I'll have the review episode shortly after the games that are being played, where I look back on them, give them a little bit of analysis, get someone on to chat about them. However, I am away shortly after the Japan game for Easter, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to squeeze it in, but I will look at the time I have. So let's leave that there. Let me wish you a happy Easter as it comes up. Thanks as always for tuning in, always appreciated. Don't forget you can follow the show on social media. Just search Three Lions Podcast, give it a like, give it a follow. You can also give it a rating on your podcast provider of choice. That's always appreciated. So until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.
From lashes for days with the viral Liquid Lash Extensions mascara to awakening your eyes with lift and color from the Brilliant Eye Brightener, Thrive Causemetics is the go-to when you want to amplify your everyday look. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin. And for every product purchased, Thrive Causemetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Causemetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecausemetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Causemetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.